Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. The Tennessee Titans are reportedly hiring John Fossil as their new special teams coordinator. According to multiple reports, Fossil most recently was the special teams coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. The Titans also sent out an advisory earlier today. New general manager Mike Borgonzi will have his introductory press conference tomorrow at 11 a.m. Titans president of football operations Chad Brinker will also be available to media tomorrow at 10 a.m. In other NFL news, the Chicago Bears are reportedly hiring Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson to be the next head coach in Chicago. College hoops action tonight. 6th-ranked Tennessee back home. They host number 15 Mississippi State. Tip-off is at 6. Vol Network coverage at 5:30 on The Zone. Vanderbilt hits the road to take on number 4 Alabama. That is tonight in Tuscaloosa. Also a 6 p.m. tip-off. And Belmont plays host to Bradley, looking to draw level at the top of the Missouri Valley, tipping off at 6:30 at the Curb. The Nashville Predators finish out their homestand tonight, looking for a season-best 4th consecutive win. They host the San Jose Sharks. Puck drop at 7 p.m. from Bridgestone Arena. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. You want to get in on the conversation. It's been announced that Chad Brinker will be having a live press conference on Wednesday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. No social media clips or audio video clips to be posted by the press. Don't know if that means that they're also going to,
That was Jackson requested. I'm sorry. Jackson requested this. No, I'll do it, Jackson. Don't worry about it. Jackson's the one who requested this. Mainstream media presser. I guess that's what I'm going to call it.
And maybe it still goes live on Titans.com because obviously the fan base needs to see the guy that is behind, that is the guy running the show. Who's running
the show?
Well, it's for quotes only for the press. We don't know if they are for sure are or are not going to put it on Titans.com, is what I have been told. It's what I've been told. So we'll see.
But no questions.
Well, questions. Some people think that in the media think that this is going to lead to, I guess, more pressing questions because it's not on the live feed, which that doesn't really jive with my head because I'm thinking if you're going to ask questions in private that are tough, why wouldn't you ask questions in public that are tough? Like, I don't understand why there's a difference. But, I'm not a long time media beat reporter journalist, so
This is my first time. I don't recall this ever.
This is kind of weird, and I feel like it's just not only is this weird, but also the whole handling of this Colt Anderson situation is also weird. It's like the Tennessee Titans cannot do anything right.
Like everybody knows what happened with Colt Anderson.
We don't know. Holiday. That's what I'm saying. We don't know.
Well, they hired a special teams coach.
Yeah, we know that. So we know he's either demoted at worst.
Oh yeah, he's demoted or fired, one of the two. We don't know. Maybe he's still on staff. Maybe he's at another position. Position coach.
Because no matter what is said in this has been a utter nightmare from like an objective PR standpoint. They have done nothing right. The processes have been terrible. Mike is getting himself into a whole world of different than what has been operated at Kansas City, I'm sure. He's going to be like, well, this is how we do things here?
Oh, my.
So I look at it like this. Nothing is going to stop them from getting their words parsed, like Chad Brinker. Like, I know, because we've been the ones to do it. We brought up the words that they have used, right? Mm-hmm. Brought up those words. Well, guess what? Even if you say it and it gets put on social media and just in type, like just written out, we're still going to get what we need to get. It's not like the reporters are going to hold back some juicy story or juicy details from the public, because that only helps them. So I don't understand why not just go with audio video. I just don't get it. I want to get more into this, but first, we were having a really good discussion before we went on air about the college football playoffs and the decision by Marcus Freeman to kick the field goal
in the national championship
game Monday night, where they ended up winning.
The Ohio State.
And I thought it was interesting the stuff you put out there, or put in our conversation about from the coach's perspective.
Yeah.
And so kind of go into the coach's perspective of why maybe that decision is not as outlandish as what people think.
To me, and trust me, at the moment, I was like, man, dang, go for it. Just like every other fan that's watching a game. And then I sat there and thought, well, why did he make the decision? These elite coaches, they don't get this far without, making mistakes and learning from their mistakes. So I think he thought there's only so many possessions left. All right, I have to get points. And he still didn't get points because the guy missed a 27-yard field goal. So if I get points, then we're still in the game. But here's the part that I didn't say to you. You also help the psychology of the actual athlete that we still have a shot of winning or tying the game. See? So now you keep them engaged with hope. Not only that, your fan base too. Because if at some point in this game you thought, this is starting to go in a blowout direction. And I got to hats out to Notre Dame for fighting and coming back. That's who they are. But, they had to, control the ball and complimentary football and all that. They don't have the horses that, let's just say, that Ohio State, which has the best roster, best paid roster, by the way, too, in NCAA football. So I think that's what he was thinking at the time. And I didn't oppose it after I thought about it after the decision made, and especially when the kicker missed it. I'm like, oh, man. So then everybody, he should have definitely gone for it. Now, the kicker had some questionable kicks throughout that year, by the way. So, but 27 yards, that's an extra point. You would have thought he would make that. So I thought his thought processing was correct in moment after I quickly fanboyed, go for it. And, no. You should make sure you get points here. And just think, if they got the third down stop on the long ball, they are still in the game.
It's actually happening right now on the TV in the studio, but 9 minutes and 34 seconds left. You would think that you would be able to get the stops necessary, and they did get one stop, but it was, it took 3 minutes off the clock. They ended up scoring. Yeah, and then they gave it didn't really ever feel like they got that momentum back, and maybe they lost the momentum over the missed field goal, not necessarily the play call.
Yeah, now explain why you were on the other side of that, and I get it too, by the way.
I look at it like this, because I get the psychology of it, but also that psychology grows if you get the touchdown.
Yes.
So
but if you get nothing,
But, at this point, you got nothing either way.
Nothing burger.
But I look at it and I go, so when they first started trotting out, I was like, oh, guys, what are you guys doing? I was like, you guys, I cannot believe you're doing it. Because this is right after the play was over, I'm like, well, they're obviously going to go for it. I think they even on this drive converted a 4th and long, if I'm not mistaken, on this drive.
What was this one, 4th and 9 or 11? What was it?
Well, actually, I think it was 4th or 9 or 4th and 11. So I think they already converted a 4th down play. So I was like, okay, they're obviously going to go for it again. They're probably going to target that, what was his name? It had Great in it, and I thought that Great House. The number one.
Yeah, number one.
And I thought they would be able to go for it, try to get it. And I was just like, man, I can't believe they're not going for it. Because, again, it's still technically a 2-score game. And your defense has kind of been up and down throughout the game. Sometimes they're getting some good stops and some good timing. Mm-hmm. Other times they're just letting explosives go by. And you never know when an explosive is going to happen on this Ohio State. Because they were clearly outmatched. Mm-hmm. And so, I feel like if you are outmatched in talent, you may have to outmatch them in terms of aggressiveness, is kind of how I view it.
Well, you got to play smarter. You can't give up splash plays, which they gave up. That's when you knew they were in trouble after the first drive, which was outstanding for all the Notre Dame fans out there. But after that, it was pretty much until the second half they were definitely outplayed by a more talented team. But, the Notre Dame is not the old Notre Dame it used to be. They definitely have some pieces to the puzzle in the transfer portal world. And with Marcus there, Freeman, the head coach, I think they are on the right track. I think Notre Dame is going to be one to be contending for a while here as long as he's there and they continue to bring in, the right guys and good fits.
And also something that just popped in my head. Their Ohio State's performance throughout the college football playoffs has been exceptional.
Incredible.
What happened in Michigan? I do not understand how this is the same team that was in Michigan. I do not get it.
Well, here's what I love about sports, and this is a whole nother side in the psychology that I use, is that you must fail to get to the level that you need to get to have success.
So that loss...
Yes, it took them over the top. Not only the coach, but actually the players, too. Either you were going to come together and bond and it's us against the world. Guess what? Are you going to fracture and divide?
Right.
See, and they chose to come together. And then they have been explosive from that point forward. Now, I don't know what happened in the game. I watched bits and pieces of the game. I had no dog in the fight, but I thought they were very conservative. I don't know. Maybe it's just when you play Michigan, you wanted to show them that you could out-physical Michigan because we can beat you your style. Harbaugh's gone. So all the expectations are, this is our shot to win, and they lost. And they wanted them fired. The fan base, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the expectation there, those fan bases are just as bad as, I would say, the top-tier SEC.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt. And, by the way, all you SEC elitists, who's won the championship the last 2 years? Big Ten.
Big Ten.
Mm-hmm. So
they only got like 7 more to go.
No, you guys are second fiddle now, Jackson? Come on now, 2 in a row?
SEC will get back on track in 25.
Well, what goes up must come down and then go back up. So we shall see. The Big Ten, Michigan, now Ohio State.
Yeah.
And they are, the lead of the Big Ten. Now, naturally, the SEC has a lot more teams, but now that Bama's down, Nick Saban, retired. They better bring him out of retirement. Put Bama back on the map. So, so it just, man, it was exciting to see a very competitive game. It's, eventually it became that. And I was excited just to watch and see if Notre Dame could actually do it. And that shows you don't have to have the best roster. Obviously, Ohio State and Texas have the best rosters in the NCAA, probably. Alabama somewhere around in there, too, as well. But, yeah, I think you got to see in football, the best team wins.
Right.
And you can overcome certain elite players, but sometimes it's a little too much. And I think that was the case in this game.
When we come back, we'll get to your phone, 615-737-1045. We'll also tell you what Brian Callahan had to say about this new power structure coming up. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 1045 The Zone.
For many of you who have lived here a long time, you already know Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee area for your European car repair needs now for 26 years. And we've all gotten to watch them grow. And I don't know about you, but I love watching a hometown business take off. Well, we're now proud to announce the 5th location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from Dairy Queen. And Eurofix can serve you in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. Pretty cool getting to watch a small-town mechanic starting in the barn of his backyard of a single-wide trailer and now grow to 5 locations repairing thousands of cars each month. And at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loan a car with every repair appointment. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But always don't blame, said you.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. You want to get in on the conversation, and we're going to go straight to the phones. We're going to go to Coach T. Who wants to talk about the college football playoffs.
Oh, Coach T.
Coach T, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Fella. Hey, I know we on cover 2, baby, but I gave y'all cover 11 a few weeks ago.
You
did
did.
say Ohio State was going to win, Coach.
Hey, I told you off the rap, man. I said, hey, and I picked the man. The FanDuel was great to me. Let's just say it was a nice FanDuel payout. But Blaine, I'm gonna go one up on you. You're the big player in this, and you've been at all levels in the thinking process. I'm gonna go back to where you talked about. It was that Michigan game. We missed 3 field goals. That's what happened there in Michigan. Chip shots, whatever reason, kicker just didn't have his day. Everybody has one of those days. But I think coming off that field, Ryan Day had a conversation with the boys, and he said, I don't want to be like Harbaugh. I'm not going to be in Harbaugh's situation and not going to be put in that. So when the fans, the media started getting on him, I think the motto became, shock the world, surprise yourself. Everyone's already against us right now, talking about boo-hoo Ohio State, give them their towel, let them cry. And we got, like as you mentioned, the most expensive roster in college football outside of Texas. Let's go play Ohio State football. Punch you in the mouth and see who wins. And I think when the freshmen stepped up 2 games back against Texas and they did everything they had to do, they were on point. Now, Leonard had a great opening, last night, but I think those 100 yards in that 10 minutes, man, they showed his photo on the sideline, man, that kid was blowing. And I don't think he came back after that. He didn't have the same energy to go 3 more quarters and do that, and Buckeyes took advantage of it. Now, the field goal in the end, yeah, he could have taken that. I'm thinking, like you said, he probably was thinking we can get the field goal. We had already got back in the game. He thought Ohio State was probably slipping a little bit, thinking they had the game in the bag. And they were playing great football. They missed a chip shot, and now Dave said, hey, let's put this game away. That's what happened, baby. Buckeye world.
There you go.
Coach T.
We're straight from Coach T's mouth to your all's ears.
Man, I'm sure he won a boatload of money, too, because he called this.
He called almost every game. I mean, he called in and gave us betting tips. I
don't bet, but, boy, they were right on point.
I mean, we should have. I mean, we could have had a little cover 2 slush fund with the money that or the betting advice he gave us. I think that's
how Jackson got that new hat he has on.
You think so?
With that T on it. What's that T stand for?
No idea. I just like the hat.
It's Tennessee blue. I didn't know what it was.
Well, I mean, that's the old symbol of Rand Carthon is what he's wearing.
What he used to wear. That's what he was going to say. So it's in tribute to Rand?
I just like the hat.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's go to Mark, who wants to talk Tennessee Titans. Mark, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, what's up, gentlemen?
What's up?
What's going on?
Hey, well, I'm curious to get y'all thoughts on what y'all would ask the new GM coming in. And I'm kind of curious, are they trying to keep him husk because we got the number 1 pick? What would y'all ask him?
Well, I think that's a good question, Mark, because you could kind of attack that from 2 different things. My big thing is what I would ask Chad Brinker. I do have stuff I would ask Mike Bergonzi, but let me start off with this, and this kind of gets us into this discussion of the power structure. Yesterday, Albert Breer on Monday released an article, and in that article he said that among all of the duties that he had, we're talking about Bergonzi, one of them is final say. And I said, well, what does that, and I was talking to Stoney yesterday, and you kind of asked the same thing. Well, what does that mean? Because is this going to be a situation where he makes a roster move? Okay, here's my roster move I'm making. Well, I got to call Chad before we actually do it. Or I got to give Chad approval. Because if Chad has approval and veto power, and Bergonzi has to run everything through Chad, he doesn't have final say on the roster. Now, does that mean that he can maybe pick the final 53 without Brinker's involvement? I don't know. But there is, of course, with everything the Tennessee Titans do, provide no clarity. Because a couple weeks ago, they just said that Brinker is the final authority on all football matters. Has that changed? Are we going to figure that out tomorrow? Because the follow-up question is, because obviously the question is going to be, the first question more than likely is going to be, who has final say over the roster? And if Chad Brinker says Bergonzi, the next question to follow up with has to be something along the lines of, I want to get my correct wording down. Okay, if that's true, does he have full autonomy to make the decisions? Because basically, whatever Berganzi says just passes right on through without your approval.
Right.
If that's not true,
Right.
he does not have final say.
Right. Now, I guess the example I would give is, okay, they have the number 1 pick. Let's say whoever, Berganzi wants to trade out of the pick. His analytics side say, hey, we get multiple picks. We need to do this. And Brinker says, no, we're taking Cam Ward or whoever. And then Callahan says, no, I actually like Shedeur Sanders. So is Brinker maybe not just the stamp, maybe he's the tiebreaker.
They said that too.
To GM,
Yeah.
and he's a tiebreaker. And the reason why I say that is because that was a structure that we had when I was there.
But if you have the authority for tiebreaker, doesn't that necessarily mean you have final say?
I would say pretty much.
Am I too simplistic in my approach?
What I would say is most of the time you want to be in unison. You can have different opinions, but
Yeah.
you can be convinced of one or the other. And then maybe you agree, and maybe the head coach and the GM say, I want this guy or I want to trade this pick, and then Brinker kind of is this is what we need to do for the organization. This is the best thing to do. So you can say he has final say so, but that doesn't mean he doesn't also agree with
Right.
the other decisions.
Exactly.
But maybe
my thing is like once Berganzi makes a roster decision, does it have to go right? Does it have the right to go on through without Brinker's knowledge,
like
approval?
on the phone, he's calling, I got this trade. And
Yeah.
he has to
Or
get
can
approval
he
from
just
Brinker.
do it?
Right.
Because if he has to get approval of any kind, he doesn't have final say.
I would say Brinker says, hey, I give it a stamp of approval. Maybe he's not in the weeds and doing all the grunt
Yeah.
work. And Berganzi, he should give him a little bit of respect
should.
on that. But he ultimately can stop it.
Right.
If let's say the head coach is sitting there, Callahan saying, nah, I really want this other guy.
So here's what I would ask the GM to answer the caller's original question. I have a couple of questions I'd ask. I'd want to know what his non-negotiables are when it comes to prospects.
Right.
I would prefer prospects, but prospects in free agency. What is he looking for in assistant GM in terms of scouting and all that kind of stuff? If it has not been announced that he maybe has already hired an assistant GM. What he's looking for in their background. Does he have full autonomy to hire that assistant GM? Because that's another thing. That's the guy that's working with you. Do you have full autonomy to get the guy that is under you, or does Chad Brinker get to hire the guy that's under you? And I would also want to know as far as, and this is more of a nerd question, I guess you would say,
But all important.
is that I'm very interested because when it came out yesterday, he is obviously familiar with, under John Dorsey, the Green Bay Packers way. And what I mean by that is John Dorsey has learned from Ron Wolf, and he has learned from John Dorsey. How much of that lineage is going to cross over to now, and how much is going to be the Chiefs kind of style of grading, scouting, communicating processes? Because the reason I ask that is because I want to know how much overlap is going to be with Chad Brinker's way of communicating processes. Because if you remember, when Rand Carthon got hired, he said it's a lot easier for one person to learn the process already instilled instead of trying to create a new process. So he came into how things were already being done and just kept rolling with it. Rolling through with the processes, the language, the grading system, the scouting system, all that stuff. He didn't make and implement and put his own fingerprints and DNA from the San Francisco 49ers, what he learned over there, over to this. He said it himself. I'm just going to learn how they already do things and adapt to their way of doing things. Ultimately, I think I thought it was a bad move at the time. I think it's in hindsight still a bad move, and could be a reason why he was seen as a guy who didn't really have much power because he didn't take the chance to implement stuff the way that he wanted to do.
What are you talking about, Rand?
Yeah.
Well, to me, when you get scapegoated, in my opinion, and someone you hired has usurped you in a year's window, you have lost all power and autonomy to do anything. So I think if I was guessing, he lost his lust for what he had determined was his dream job and how he could build it and never really got a shot to actually finish the work. So that's kind of how I view it. And maybe, Brinker's process of the way he goes about things is better. That's what I'm hoping. So that's all I can really say, Ben, that I wasn't there. But that is how it's viewed from the outside in. Whether his processes are better or not, I have no idea. So we shall see. But he should have had some processes in place, all the different places he was at, from Rams to the 49ers.
But he adapted to what they did already here, Does
that say he's too nice?
Yeah. I think it has.
Right.
We
also bring it. We talked to the offensive tackles. We talked about that. How he should have laid the land on that one and said, no, we need an offensive tackle, a veteran guy to back up this MPF because he may not work out because he played horrible these last 2 years at the end of the season.
What about relying on relationships to do the trades for L'Jarius Sneed and DeAndre Hopkins? Because if you guys think those are bad trades, well, the guy pulling all the stuff to get it done, well, both of them are here at Tennessee now. That's a question that I would ask the GM. Why couldn't you get the deal done with L'Jarius Sneed on your own, and why were you so willing to trade a future third-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed? Well, how do you feel the Titans came out on that end? Mm-hmm. Same thing with DeAndre Hopkins. You guys traded for DeAndre Hopkins, gave up a fifth-round pick. You guys didn't even use them. So why didn't you, at Kansas City, value that fifth-round pick where you're not even using DeAndre Hopkins, and why aren't you using DeAndre Hopkins over there?
Which Rand said that Brinker's connection, which was Bergonzi, helped facilitate.
And Breer said the same thing.
Right. So, but yet, Rand is gone. And I don't know how people view the Snead trade or the Hopkins on the other side of that.
But that guy's still here. And that's been I think that's been our whole big issue is that, like, they've made it such a mess where they intertwined everything and convoluted this whole thing. They created a power structure and they didn't follow the power structure because they said that Rand Carthon had final say over everything, and then you come to find out Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, and Chad Brinker are just coming to a consensus. Because if Rand Carthon had final say, you wouldn't need a consensus.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times did he lose in that consensus? And if you're losing in the consensus, you don't have final say.
I don't think that's what happened. See, I think you're missing a boat.
No. I'm just saying that
Brinker had that final say. Once that happened, Rand, there was needed no consensus.
But they said,
we do what I say.
So that's my thing, is that they said he had final say, but it doesn't sound like they ever actually went through with that.
He initially did until Brinker had elevated his title.
Yeah.
See, he did until Brinker was elevated.
Vrabel had it.
Well, no, that was Vrabel at first.
Yeah.
But then when there was no more Vrabel,
Rand Carthon had it for like a week.
No, he had more than that. I think he had his contract restructured where he had autonomy over the roster and everything else.
But that was at the same time that they announced Chad Brinker was president. That came out in the same press release.
Oh, well, did it say that he had all power?
Well, it said in that press release
but I think president tells you something too now.
Right. The titles tells you everything. So to me, we've talked about it before about where we kind of feel like Rand Carthon went wrong. And I think there was some of that stuff is in hindsight, but one of the big things that I've always thought he's went wrong is conforming himself to the scouting process instead of conforming the scouting process to him, and then keeping all the scouts. He made a few promotions, but I don't believe he fired any scouts. Even in the last year when there was all those changes, there's a bunch of promotions. I think he hired 2 people on top of that. But, like, you didn't surround yourself with like-minded individuals and you conformed to those people. So, like, you're the general manager. They should really be conforming to you if you have a conviction in how the scouting process and free agency process should be going. And it leads me to, it doesn't feel like he had conviction. And I think sometimes when you don't have conviction, it's much like drafting a quarterback. If you draft a quarterback and you don't have conviction in him, you're making the wrong move. No, but none of these good quarterbacks in the NFL were not like unanimously wanted by their teams. Now, there may be like one or two people, but like the main decision makers all get on the same page fairly early. But when you don't have a conviction about a quarterback and you still draft one and reach for him in the first round, those are the guys that usually flame out in your franchise.
Yeah, so maybe everything you say here makes you think maybe he wasn't ready to be the GM.
That's what it sounds like, and I thought he was, and I'll be the first to admit it. You're not going to find I was a big Rand supporter before he got hired. He's one of him and Ian Cunningham and Adam Peters were like 1A, 1B, 1C for me. Like I was like, okay, any of these guys I'm going to be good with. And then he got hired, and I defended him throughout the whole thing. But you just start adding in the pieces, and when you get new information, you need to be open to receiving that new information. And then when you get certain things said, and then you start thinking about some of the missteps he made at the beginning of his tenure that kind of trickled down, had a trickle-down effect, just kind of is. Again, we have to have, by the way, we have to come away with real concrete clarity tomorrow about this power structure. And I know that there are people out there that say, well, the owner has the final say. What does it matter? The owner's not there. You're expecting an owner that is hardly there throughout the week to have final say over the roster. No, she's entrusting someone to be her, consigliere, down here while she's gone.
And that's going to be Brinker.
So who has the final say does matter for this franchise. To say that it does not matter is sticking your head in the sand. You're being an ostrich. You're ostriching yourself because it matters. So we have to figure that out. We have to know that by tomorrow. And whatever they say, we need to hold them to it, not start saying, in the middle of the year saying, well, this decision is this is this. No, if Chad Brinker has final say, all decisions rest on him. Every decision that is made rests on him. Blame at his feet. Don't let him blame the coach or the GM. And you guys don't need to blame the coach and GM. You got to blame Chad Brinker. This is probably why he's not open.
I don't think the structure is set up where he's going to get the blame.
I don't, but I think that's why we have to be us, the media and the fans, have to be informed and have to have that to be able to hold the people correctly accountable when things go bad. If they go bad, again, sometimes bad processes lead to good results. This could lead to a good result.
I sure hope it does. I can't wait till this whole process is over. I don't even know what's going on with the daggone freaking special team coach.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like, okay, all of a sudden, as soon as we went off the air yesterday, all of a sudden, new special teams coach. Well, that's weird. They haven't fired anybody. I mean, where's the announcement that they're fired? I mean, obviously, if they're hiring,
I missed it. I was driving back from it. I was like, what?
I mean, obviously, if you're hiring someone for a position that was held by someone else, that person is fired. But maybe he's demoted to assistant special teams coach. And again, the Tennessee Titans just hate providing clarity. I don't know what is going on, how this leaked, why this leaked, what is going on with this whole situation.
Who broke the news?
Tom Pelissero broke the news first, if I'm not mistaken.
Man.
Which, by the way, is the guy who first broke the Bergonzi news. So he's connected somewhere. He's connected to someone inside that building that knows what's going on, and they keep leaking it to Tom Pelissero. So that's your new insider that you got to pay attention to. And I would say Albert Breer is the other one. Like it used to be Diana Rossini and then Ian Rappaport, but now it's really, with this new regime, it's Tom Pelissero and Albert Breer. Those are the guys I'm keeping my eyes on right now. Turn those alerts and notifications on their tweets because that's the guy that kind of knows. Those guys know what's going on before anybody else, maybe even before most of the Tennessee Titans, because I cannot believe that there's a higher announcement before there's any kind of other staffing changes that have publicly been named.
Have you ever seen this in anything? I can't recall it. I've seen guys getting their play calling duties taken away. I've seen guys get demoted, but it's already done beforehand. Like it's in the plan.
Yeah.
So it's late in the game, so I don't know where Coach Anderson would go. And they lost their assistant, right? Special team coach.
Oh, maybe.
already. So,
I mean, if he's getting demoted, you would think that the guy that if he's getting demoted to assistant special teams coach, and that guy, I would assume, is gone. I don't know.
maybe he's moving to a position group. Maybe
Maybe.
he's coaching a position. Did he? What position did he play?
I think he was
backup
safety.
safety? Oh,
but he was special teams. I'll have to go back and
I know
look.
he's a guru on a special team,
Yeah.
but was he, a position? What position did he play? Maybe he's coaching. I don't know. Safeties coach. No, they already have a safety coach or something. Defensive back, outside linebackers coach. I mean, there's a variety of things if you want to keep a guy on your staff, and not just cut ties. That happens, but man, that very
Yes,
rarely.
free safety. Pre-draft, that's what he played in college, was free safety.
Now, is Chris Harris's contract? Reason why I say that is because I saw someone mention, I think Vrabel mentioned his name as potentially maybe a DC.
Well, I think someone made that connection.
They made the connection,
Yeah.
but they were mentioning different guys
Right.
but they were basing off connections as well as kind of.
Well, and he's actually interviewing the old outside linebackers coach Ryan Crow.
Yep, I saw it.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that staff forms. When we come back, we're going to talk about John Fossil and all that kind of stuff because, obviously, massive upgrade.
Oh, yeah.
Well-respected coach, and we got to at least dive into what he brings to the Tennessee Titans. That will be up next. Is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop, Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. If you want to get in on the conversation. And, of course, we have the F&M Bank chat on Zone TV, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. And Blaine, obviously, yesterday was reported the Titans are hiring former Cowboys special teams coordinator John Fossil as their new special teams coordinator. So it's interesting because they wanted to bring him back in Dallas, but because they don't have a head coach yet, he decided to go somewhere else. This is a very big hire, by the way, for this Tennessee Titans franchise. One of the best special teams coaches out there. Mm-hmm. Amy Trask, who works for the Raiders, said, when I read this report about the Titans hiring John Fossil, my immediate thought was that John was the best special teams coordinator we had during my years with the Raiders, and I was there almost 30 years. Highly respected. I mean, you're not going to find you got players coming out of the woodwork talking about it. I mean, he has just been one of the best coordinators out there in terms of, for the stat nerds, in terms of DVOA. Since he's been the Dallas Cowboys special teams coordinator, they've been top 10 all 5 years. And, just for everybody's, obvious records, Tennessee Titans were 32nd this year, and they've been in the low 20s. I guess, the 27s, 28s, 29s, all through the Vrabel era as well, for the most part. So huge hire. And what it kind of also tells me, Blaine, is that he knows that special teams were an issue. They didn't get corrected fast enough. They also needed to find ways to now flip games in their favor. And they once they got it fixed, they were just an average special teams unit, but they never really had special teams like change the game in a meaningful way. And he realized, okay, maybe I need to make special teams changes and all this kind of stuff, because that was the big knock on Vrabel, right? Special teams was poor season after poor season after poor season, and it took getting the punter injured for him to finally fire Craig Ackerman. Brian Callahan, after 1 year, says this was not good enough. It has to be fixed. We're bringing in the best special teams coordinator out there available to come in and fix this for us.
And now, you said a lot of things there, but you left me puzzled.
Okay.
Who hired Fossil?
Well, I would assume it's an assumption.
Watch this. I always tell this to my son: never make assumptions. And the reason why I only asked it because we went over the GM's duties and what would be required, Brinker's duty, and who's over the roster. And I go, well, is the head coach actually the one hiring and firing coaches? And maybe that's why it's a mixed message, because someone else hired Fossil.
Well, it's supposed to be the GM,
which is absent. And who's playing the part of the GM?
Mike Berganzi.
No, who?
Oh, Chad Brinker.
Right. See, so I'm just wondering, did Callahan or did Brinker hire him? And this is hint maybe where the rubber meets the road.
You would think, and here's something to keep on your radar. He has been an interim head coach once.
Yes, he has. And a lot of people said he was going to get a head coaching job during that period of time, too.
If Brian Callahan were to get fired, you have an interim head coach already on your roster.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that is what is happening or being planned for. Again, we have no clue because nobody's talking. And we'll probably maybe not even get into a situation tomorrow where maybe this is brought up because Brian Callahan may not be talking tomorrow. Right now, it's just Berganzi and Brinker, for all we know, unless they slot in someone else in between that. But right now, we don't even know Brian Callahan's talking.
Do you know if the more they don't talk, do you know more speculation will arise here from the media?
I know
here locally?
that, but they clearly don't know that.
I mean, man, they bring up more questions.
I don't know if they just don't listen to their PR department or if they just don't have that common sense floating around there. But this has just been, it's a mess after mess after mess that just it's just crazy. Like, I don't understand why they can't handle such common sense things correctly. I don't understand it because this is common sense stuff that you learn in like college. Like, this is stuff you learn in college. Heck, I learned it at high school, but like, this is stuff you at least learn in college. And I cannot believe the missteps that they're making week after week, day after day. And this is stuff you learn in the NFL, I figured, a long time ago. The interesting thing is I don't really see a overlap between Brian Callahan and Fossil, or Mike Bergonzi and Fossil, or Chad Brinker and Fossil. So I thought that is very interesting. I guess the overlap, not even. There's no overlap. Even I was thinking, okay, maybe it's with Bill Callahan. Maybe this is
was he the interim?
No.
Well,
but I mean,
his reputation speaks for itself.
But maybe they probably know each other, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no coaching connections that I can figure out just from a quick cursory glance. But it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I expect Nick Holtz to be there. I expect Denard Wilson to still be there. I don't know about the rest of his coaching staff and how everybody's viewed. Because listen, the hiring of the coaching staff last year was, guess what? Everybody's favorite word, a collaborative effort. Because Rand Carthon oversaw the coaching searches for not only just Brian Callahan, but also the other the assistants and all that kind of stuff. Denard Wilson was a Rand Carthon connections, allegedly. So their Rolodexes were combined. Is that the same instance here? I don't know. No, because nobody talks. So we just have to guess.
Maybe we'll figure it out after we look at Mr. Head Coach Callahan's contract. So maybe we can see if he has control of his coaching staff.
Well, supposedly,
maybe we'll tell him after the break.
We'll tell him after the break. We'll re-up everybody what actually the GM is supposed to oversee, because that's the word they use, oversee. So there you go. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here, 104.5 The Zone. Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone. Hour number 2 here on Powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045. You want to get on the conversation? Coach Mack coming up at 2:20 p.m. We'll ask him a lot about the new special teams coordinator, which we were talking about who has control and all this kind of stuff. We know that in Albert Breer and other subsequent, or I guess previously mentioned articles by the Tennessee Titans that the head coach reports to the GM reports to Chad Brinker. And in the statement where they fired Rand, it says, this is from Burke Nihill, CEO of the Tennessee Titans. It is important to Amy to have absolute clarity in the football organization. And so while the general manager position will have a primary responsibility on all the things Chad is describing in terms of the day-to-day of overseeing the roster and the coaching staff, Chad is the leader of the football program, so Chad will be the final authority on all football matters, including the roster. So, oversees the coaching staff. What does that mean? How much power is that? Does that mean that Brian Callahan has to go to Mike Bergonzi, and then Mike Bergonzi has to go to Chad Brinker? Or is it just he has to go to Mike Bergonzi, and Mike Bergonzi gets to say, okay, yeah, here's some candidates, here's who we're going to interview, who's we're going to hire? Because do we think that in these last couple of days, Mike Bergonzi's been everything he's got to do, including the Chiefs playoff game over the weekend, was able to interview John Fossil as well? I mean, that's the questions we need answered.
I don't know about that, but I am looking up overseeing.
Yeah.
Because there could be a drawing line here, and I think all of us understand what it means, but in this instance, let's see if you can pick anything out of the definition, which means supervising, managing, or monitoring a task, activity, or group of people to ensure everything is carried out correctly. For example, a manager might oversee a team's work on a project. That's it.
Yeah. That's what it kind of sounds like.
So he's just the overseer and maybe the messenger to the owner.
Ultimately, here's what I think is going to go down, is that Chad Brinker has hired someone that aligns with the way that he views the scouting, free agency, player acquisition process. Okay? He's found someone that they align. Ultimately, Mike Bergonzi is the right-hand man of Chad Brinker, which means that whatever Chad Brinker wants done, he can trust that Mike Bergonzi is going to carry it out without any real pushback.
Right.
And maybe that's okay.
And maybe
right?
they have different discussions.
That's pretty much probably
how
how a lot of teams are. Because, in fact, Brian Callahan was just he's done an interview with A to Z Sports. He did a sit-down with Easton Freeze, sort of a sit-down, virtually. And they spent 90 minutes, and they're going to be releasing the kind of like in clips and sections. But here's what he had to say about the structure. So Brian Callahan views the structure like this. I think it helps everybody do their job to the best of their ability. He goes on, I think it's a pretty cool structure, to be honest. You don't get lost in the weeds. You know when your GM is not worrying about what the grass looks like on the field, he's more worried about that players we're going to draft in the 6th round, what players we're going to draft in the 6th round. And I think those things help. It just helps keep everything streamlined and focused. And this is my opinion, but that's just how I've seen it. And I think it's beneficial for us. The way that we're set up, I think probably you're going to start to see a little bit more of it as these organizations continue to get bigger across the NFL. The staffs have gotten bigger on both sides, both in personnel and in coaching, and you're seeing also the support staffs get bigger. You have more security people, you have more operations people, your equipment staff, your training staff, your grounds crew. These are all things that get run in the operation on a day-to-day basis, and there's a lot that goes on. So he thinks that this is where the NFL is going to start trending. Albert Breer also said that this is kind of a unique thing in the NFL, but it's very common in other sports. Brian Callahan has also brought up the structure of when he was a coach in Denver was sort of like this as well. Sort of, not is. So, like, that's the thing. We think the Detroit Lions are sort of like this, but we don't really have any clarity from their end either. And we don't really hear a lot from Rod Wood as much as we hear Chad Brinker's name. It's usually just Brad Holmes. So is this going to be one of those situations where we're still naming all three people in these rumor mills and reports? So it will be interesting to see how this press conference goes tomorrow, because it's very confusing, but it seems to be that a lot of people think this is the future and how the NFL is going to go as a whole. But we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Let's first talk about the future. The future is already past, and that was when I keep bringing up when I was playing. That was the structure. Head coach Fisher, GM Floyd Reese, and guess who the Brinker was? Jeff Diamond. Those three, and he was the voice of reason and would go back to the owner. So I don't know what about this new structure, but it was pretty much streamlined the exact same way.
So let me ask you this.
With Underwood as the attorney part of it.
So when it comes to security crews, scheduling travel,
I have no idea who did what.
Okay, well, I think that's where
I was talking about up top.
Yeah. Because it used to be all that fell under the GM umbrella, the general manager umbrella.
I don't think they did. I don't think it did. I think it's probably, it may have, it could be under Berg Nihill on that side of it. I don't know, but that's still kind of football related, but that's still operations more so. So you probably better.
So I look at it this way. What it sounds like they're doing is that Rod Wood, I'm going back to the Detroit Lions, he's the president of operations and football business, or football and business operations. Okay, so football,
which would entail what?
Everything. So he's the president of everything. They've split that. Chad Brinker is the president of football operations, and I believe Burke Nihill is really just the president of business operations, but he's CEO. So they've split that.
Okay.
And then what they have done from there is give him some of the normal GM duties. And also, to Chad Brinker. So that would be analytics, heading over the analytics department, heading over the salary cap, managing the video crew, the security crew, all this other stuff that deals with the stadium, football operations, game day operations.
Okay.
But he also says that I will be lending my support in the coaching and the draft and all this kind of stuff. So it's like he's still involved in every aspect of football. But this is the same thing they said last year. So I just go back to that. I just
feel like it's overlapping a little bit too much maybe with Brinker and his duties based off what you just said there.
Right, and
maybe that's why they hired the GM. Now he's going to facilitate mostly all of that, and he will oversee him and his duties of the new GM. So
right, but I mean he has the final say over roster control. But then Albert Breer says that Berganzi has the final say over roster control. So it's just a mess. It's a constant mess. But apparently it may work. So that's just all we got to do. I'm interested to see who the assistant GM is, because I'm not really digging Dave Ziegler as assistant GM. And if for those that may want to go hear more details, listen to Cover 2 from Monday's show, where I talked about that yesterday. But he really comes up from the pro side of things. And really some of Berganzi's stuff it's overlaps. It all overlaps. But Berganzi kind of came up from the pro side of things. I would like to see like a heavy-duty scout guy. And like I said, John Eric Sullivan and Terrence Gray, two guys they interviewed for the GM job, can be promoted to assistant GM. I like those, and I like Jim Nagy as well. Gotta have someone a little bit with a different background, in my opinion.
I would say so, but man, I just want some clarity on the overlapping part of this. And then even that with a question on Wednesday would be also who's in the front line as assistant GM. Or are you going to even hire someone?
Yeah.
Just kind of keep us in the loop but not giving us everything.
Right. It will be interesting to see how the staff's, revamped because they said they're going to overhaul or restructure the scouting staff.
department. Mhm.
So, and I think that's super important. It's a little weird to do it before the draft, and we don't know if they are, but we know some kind of restructuring is on the way. But they got to start bringing in their guys now that speak their language. Maybe that's just assistant GM and a couple of scouts, but they got to start making some moves because at the East-West Shrine Bowl practices are this week. Senior Bowl starts up next week. You guys kind of want to have your people in place.
But is it too late?
I don't think so. No, I really don't.
So it's basically February.
Yeah.
And the draft is when?
Well, what are you saying that it's too late to revamp everything?
Right.
Yeah, and that's usually why it never happens that way.
Well,
It usually is after
the draft. And then
But you
start
still
revamping.
get your assistant GM and a few of your own scouts in.
No, your head honchos. Right.
So, yeah, if they do a total restructure, that's why I said it'll be very odd to do it before the draft.
Yeah.
So I would expect a complete revamp after the draft because you got all these guys that have been in since mid-December going through their tape, going through their draft profiles and everything. And then the coaching staff's going to get involved. So you kind of want to have some semblance of a scouting staff and scouting language nailed down. So I assume that's what's going to happen here is that they're going to wait till after. But they're still going to have to hire some people to be the assistant GM and maybe some other scouts as well. Go ahead and bring them over. We'll see how that all works out. When we come back, we'll talk about John Fassel with the guy that coached with John Fassel, and that is Coach Mack here on 104.5 The Zone. This is Blaine and Zach. Cover 2, 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, folks, you know I've been talking about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance for years because they're the leading experts in sports medicine and performance and the team physicians for the NFL, college, and high school athletics across Tennessee. And TOA provides sports medicine coverage to more high school and college sports teams than any orthopedic group in the state of Tennessee. They have 29 locations throughout the state and over 100 physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. And TOA has 11 urgent care locations with walk-in availability 7 days a week. They offer direct access to sports medicine and performance, physical therapy, and nutrition, personalized rehabilitation plans to enhance mobility and reduce pain, and improve overall physical function for patients recovering from injuries or surgeries. And TOA also offers sports performance training, a specialized program designed to enhance athletic performance and provide tailored training solutions for athletes at all levels. So please check out their services at TOA.com. Yes, that's right, TOA.com.
It's Covered 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. It's 2:20 p.m. on a Tuesday. You know what that means. It's time for our weekly Mack Attack with Coach Mack of Titans Radio. And, Coach, big special teams hire by the Tennessee Titans yesterday. John Fossil is slated to become their special teams coach, and you have a lot of experience with John Fossil, so, you know, the floor is yours. Talk about him.
All right. Well, first of all, good afternoon, guys. If indeed Bones is going to be the special teams coach, that's a huge get. I've worked with his dad and I were coordinators at Arizona together. When Vince Tobin took that head job and hired Jim Fossil, his dad, as the offensive coordinator, and me as the defensive coordinator, we were there together at Arizona, and then his dad got the head job at the Giants, and then I got the head job at the Cardinals, and we competed against each other there in the NFC East for a while. But Bones, look, you're talking about a guy that has built a 20-year resume as a premier special teams coach in this league. I think Bones' first year coaching special teams was probably in 2005. When Jeff Fisher got the job in St. Louis, that's the guy that we went to Oakland to get, because he had already established himself as one of the premier special teams coaches, in the league. And special teams coaches are kind of they travel a different path, and they're kind of a different breed, because they work in an atmosphere. They've got to be able to get to all the players on the team, and they're really, they are responsible for a lot of things, but the main thing they're responsible for is getting special teams players to really embrace that role. And Bones is one of the best I've ever been around, one of the best. When we were in St. Louis, and then we moved to L.A., we won some games there in the NFC West because of special teams plays. And I can say without a doubt that he is a really, really exceptional special teams coach, and that's just not my opinion. I think that's pretty league-wide.
Yeah, the I guess you would say the reviews are glowing from everywhere. He picked up two players, Cavante Turpin and Brandon Aubrey from the USFL, and turned them into All-Pros. What about his player development process can get the most out of guys that have seemingly the league hasn't really paid much attention to?
Zach, that's a good point. When we hired him there at St. Louis, we took that job at St. Louis. They did not have a kicker nor a punter. And so basically what Jeff Fisher did is he put Bones on. He said, go find us the best that are out there right now, not the draft. Find us the best free agent kickers that are on the market right now. And he went out and he got Johnny Hecker and he got Greg Zuerlein, who ended up both having 12-year careers in this league. He just got an exceptional eye for that type of talent. But what he really can do too, there's a skill to playing special teams, and he can coalesce and bring those guys together, and then develop some really not only unique schemes, but he gets a pretty unique. And the only way I can relate it to is that the special teams that I've been around with him, which is quite a few years, he develops a real esprit de corps with those special teamers, that they look forward to his meetings. I was an assistant head coach during those years, and so I was in all of his meetings, and his meetings were, you can tell when a coach has the players' attention, and Bones had it.
What do the players that are already on the Tennessee Titans, maybe these young rookies and stuff, what do these players need to expect from John Fossil?
Well, somebody that's going to be very well prepared, know exactly the ins and outs of what he wants to do and present to them, and then somebody that they will relate to really quickly. Because, Bones is one of the – look, good coaches develop relationships with their players, and it doesn't have to be – it's not buddy-buddy. It's the fact that the players respect them because they know that from this coach, I'm going to get better at my craft. And really, at the end of the day, professional athletes, no matter what sports you're in, all they really want from a coach, they want honesty, and they want you to be able to help them be better. And Bones does that.
We're talking all things Tennessee Titans with Coach Mack of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Well, Coach, one of our former teammates, that's all he wanted, and that's what he's doing in the coaching industry. I think you've been a part of that. That is Eddie George getting an interview. I know he didn't get the job there with the Bears, but did you get a chance to talk to him and give him some tips on maybe how to impress in an interview and look at it as a testing ground for maybe a potential job in some point in time throughout his career as a coach?
No, I didn't get to talk to Eddie before he went up there, but I'm sure I'll talk to him afterwards. Here's the thing that I like about that, for Eddie. Even though he didn't get the job, what it did do is it at least put his name out there on. You've got to get on the radar screen first. To get into that interview circuit that you go on, and the success that he's had there at Tennessee State.
Yep.
I think has put that spotlight on him. And then as well as I do, Blaine, if you sit down with Eddie George in a room, whether you're talking to him about football, whether you're talking to him about being on Broadway, whether you're talking to him about business acumen, he's going to impress you.
Yeah.
He's going to impress you. So I am happy for Eddie just for the simple fact that he has gotten on that circuit now in the coaching aspect of it. And I'm interested to talk to him and see how he felt like it went.
Well, Coach, I wanted to ask you something. When you were with the Titans and, you're assistant head coach, talk about the, upper management and their structure and what their duties were. If you can recall, when there was Jeff Fisher, of course, Floyd Reese, and then Jeff Diamond, or if you were part of that whole equation, with Steve Underwood being kind of the lawyer in the backdrop of all of that.
Well, Jeff wasn't. Jeff wasn't there when I got here.
Oh, okay.
It was Mr. Underwood, and it was Mr. Underwood, Floyd, and Jeff Fisher, and that's the way the structure was. When I got there, and really basically, Floyd and Jeff had everything concerned with football. Floyd was completely, in charge, ran all the draft meetings, in charge of the draft, was in charge of, quite a few things. Of course, look, the organization wasn't as big then as it is
right,
now.
It's grown.
Yeah, it's grown. It's grown exponentially, just like every organization the National Football League has. But that was the triumvirate when all the years that I coached here was Mr. Underwood, was Floyd, and Jeff.
Now, just to say, I don't know how much you know about other organizations, but you just talked about and hinted that, things have changed, everything has grown. But up top in upper management, how consistent or how much has that changed along the way? And do different organizations kind of do it differently, whatever is the good fit for them?
No, I think what you said is true. Different organizations do it differently. It's been, I've worked at 4 organizations in 5 different cities. Because of working with the Cardinal organization, with the Rams organization, both in St. Louis and L.A. But the structure is different. It was different at the Bears when I was there. It was different when I went to Arizona. It was completely different. Here, I just told you what it was like when I was here coaching for those 8 years in Nashville, and then in St. Louis and L.A. It was even a little bit different than that. So I think everyone has their own unique structure of it, depending on as to how the responsibilities are divvied up and who's doing what. They were all different as to where I've been.
Now we all watched the playoffs this weekend, and man, you have a favorite game and one that stood out, or that you got the chance to focus on a little bit more. I know the Ravens and Bills, I got a chance to sit down and watch that. And then the Chiefs-Texans was a really good game as well. I thought the refereeing was pretty bad in that game. But I was really honed in on the Bills-Ravens. Any game that stood out to you? Any players?
Well, I had the same. I had the same observation that you did. First of all, the officiating was very uneven, very uneven in that in the Texans game and the Chiefs game. That was now the Ravens. That football game was very, very interesting to me because I think that was a strength against strength. You got both teams that are outdoors teams that were playing in some elements. You've got both teams that have 2, I think, MVP worthy quarterbacks, which always puts you at an elevation as a franchise and as a football team. The only thing that I couldn't understand And again, I'm not coaching those teams, and so that doesn't, and I'd never want to coach anybody else's team. But I would have thought that maybe the Ravens might have handed it to 22 a little bit more later in the game.
Speaking of MVP real quick, before I hand it back over to Zach, who do you think the MVP was this season? And that only counts for the regular season. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do they need to change that? And maybe it should be also during the playoffs? I don't know. A lot of people, just think that maybe they changed it. Maybe the Bills, Ravens game kind of determined who should win it or what have you. So I just want to get your thoughts on MVP, who you think is going to win it, and the timeline and frame for the MVP. Should it be, thought about at least as far as adjusting the time period?
Well, for the 39 years I've been doing this in the league, the MVP has always been a body of work during the season.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just the way it's been. So there's always going to be, that debate as to whether, because not everybody makes the playoffs.
Right.
Not everybody makes the playoffs. You would think that if you had an MVP player, but I mean, when you look at it, I mean, how do you really not, if you're talking about people that are really important to their team and their team's success, how could Saquon Barkley not be in that? How could he not be in that conversation? So most of the time, we know now that it's going to quarterbacks, and as long as they keep it in the regular season, then I think the body of work during the regular season is what will determine it. And I think right now, it's got to be between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen.
There you have it, Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack.
Obviously, the Tennessee Titans have hired a new general manager, and he's set to speak to the press on Wednesday. But what have you heard around in league circles about Mike Bergonzi's reputation as a general manager and player evaluator?
Yeah, I don't know Mike. I mean, I know who he is. Of course, the success that entire group. I know a lot of coaches there in Kansas City. Had several of them. Andy Heck, their offensive line coach. I was there at the Bears when we drafted him, and he played for us. David Merritt, their secondary coach. I coached him at Arizona. I've known Spags for years. I know Andy Reid. But so the success that franchise has had, the sustained success that has had, anybody that's been involved with that, either in the front office or all the way down the line as to what's going on there at Kansas City, has to be taken in high regard, because it's hard to continue that type of success year after year after year if you don't have quality contributors at every level. So I'm looking forward to meeting him. But I mean, as they say in West Texas, if you've got that much success for that sustained amount of time, you've got to have some water in your bucket. I know that.
How important is it to have familiarity with the scouting language between the general manager and the team president, the coaching staff? I mean, as far as a new hire goes, because Mike Bergonzi has learned under John Dorsey, who learned under Scott Pioli, who learned under Ron Wolf. Like, you got all these connections and all this stuff. And I know that was a big talking point when he got hired, was that his familiarity with the Ron Wolf system, which is also something that Chad Brinker's familiar with. How much does that play into, being able to hit the ground running as a GM when you're hired?
That helps. It helps a lot. And there's a lot of interconnections in this league with the scouting process. You just mentioned a nice little connecting for all of those names. It's just like the interconnections it is in the coaching profession and schemes and things that you run. And now everybody's going to kind of bring their own slant to it, but it makes a difference. It really does, because the quicker you can learn the language and learn the tempo of what your particular department is doing together, the quicker you can get in lockstep.
There was a term that was used throughout these last few weeks, this draft and develop. Now, obviously, that is not a new thing, but it was used in terms of what the GM's responsibility and vision is. And me and Blaine have kind of talked about this. We don't really understand, does the develop part fall under the general manager part too? And if so, how is a general manager responsible for the develop aspect?
Well, the draft part of it is a huge part of it, and then the develop part of it is still being able, to develop on the field is the coaches, but being able to develop the roster developing the roster and the constant chumming of the roster and improving of the roster. Improvement of the roster doesn't stop after the draft. Improvement of the roster is a continuous thing for the entire season. So that the developed part of it for the general manager is continuing to mine what's out there and be able to supplement the people that, because you know this, guys, the initial 53 is never the final 53. That's what the developed part of it is.
Gotcha. That clears up a lot because I was like so confused of what that means, and now that makes total sense. I appreciate it. Senior Bowl's coming up next week. I mean, you know, exciting time. Jim Nagy has been kind of rumored as a candidate for assistant general manager. You know, what's your relationship like with Jim, and what do you think about, you know, his prospects of being an assistant general manager? Because he obviously has the scouting side down, and he's been executive director of the Senior Bowl since 2018. So what's been your relationship with Jim, and how does that translate, what he does at the Senior Bowl, translate to the NFL?
Well, I mean, it's got a direct translation. I know Jim very well, and since Jim has taken that thing over, it has exponentially gotten better. Since 1986, I've been to every Senior Bowl they've had. I've coached in 4 of them, so I've seen the iteration of it from however long that is, from 1986 to 2025. And what Jim Nagy has done since he has taken over, he has really revolutionized the thing, and especially the talent evaluation and the procurement of talent in there. Because what he first did, I mean, I sat down with him, I think it was 2 seasons ago, you know, quite a bit when I got there early, and we had a very long discussion about what he had done to implement his changes. And one of the things that he did, Zach, was he hired a staff. He hired a scouting staff that goes out just like team scouts do to be able to find their people, because you've got he and his staff have to work around a lot of things, and they have to really mine it pretty deep when they go out to find guys not only that the people want to see in the league there, but also the guys that would be available and willing to come there, depending on what their draft status would be. There's a lot that goes into it. He's done an excellent job, and I know this. He knows what he's doing. He's very well connected in this league, and I've got a lot of respect for Jim.
What drill down at the Senior Bowl do you look forward to the most every year?
Both one-on-ones, the bigs one-on-ones, and then the coverage one-on-ones. I mean, that's huge. That's always big. When I coached it, I was the head coach, for 1 year. I had the South team. Mike Holmgren had the North team. And we did drills that, coaches would want to see. I mean, when I knew I was going to be the head coach, I asked other coaching staffs what they would like to see. And so I had my staff, we would do, and what they want to see really is the matchup drills. That's what they want to see. And then position specific drills for each individual period is something that you concentrate on, that you want to look at. But the bigs and the coverage one-on-ones always stand out down there.
Well, look forward to seeing what you are able to glean down there at the Senior Bowl. Blaine's got one more question.
Yeah, one more question about draft stuff, and and it's always interesting to me because I would be conflicted and convoluted throughout the whole process. Do you draft a player based on what's more important? Do you draft the player that fits the system the best, or do you draft the most talented player?
No, you draft the talent and you fit it to what you're doing. I mean, when I learned from Bill Tobin. Mm-hmm. When I first got into draft meetings and saw how things were, you draft talent, and then you make the talent. Because if you draft the talent, a good coach, you can always make it work.
With a good coach who coaches you to their system. Gotcha.
There you go. All right. I appreciate it, Coach Mack. Look forward to hearing your Senior Bowl coverage next week. Always great insight when you come on the show.
Guys, appreciate it. Zach, you're going to the Senior Bowl, aren't you?
I'll be down there. Maybe we can hook up.
Okay. Blaine, you going?
Not sure yet. Talked to Jim, but I got my conflict of scheduling.
Okay, well, just, you got my cell number, so you can call every day. I'll give you an update.
There you go. We appreciate it, Coach Mack.
I'll see you guys.
That's Coach Mack, brought to you by Tours Ford, and, of course, on Titans Radio as well. When we come back, we're going to close up the Titans talk and talk a little bit about the whole situation with the Brian Callahan, John Fossil thing, I've gotten a little bit of information that may be of interest to you guys. This is
About roster?
Huh?
About roster?
No, about the staff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're way away from the roster. We're on staff talk. This is cover two with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone.
It's a new year and time to start on your wellness goals. So if you have a nagging pain or injury that's been keeping you from fully enjoying your favorite sports or activities like golf, tennis, whatever it is now, is the time to finally take care of it. And Edge Peptide and Hormone Therapy has multiple regenerative treatment options for treating, healing, and recovering from your injuries or pain. And Edge has everything from PRP treatments to stem cell therapy. Edge focuses on your body's natural ability to heal, and the ultimate goal is to always avoid surgery if possible. So you can reduce joint pain and inflammation, promote tissue repair, and even improve mobility and function. The new year should be about healing, and Edge is here to make that happen. So call Edge for a comprehensive consultant to create the perfect treatment plan for you at some of the most aggressive pricings you'll find in the state. So spend this month restoring so you can thrive the rest of the year. You schedule online with edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com to go online to schedule an appointment. Or you can just give them a call at 615-724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here, 105 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. I've gotten a little bit of information. I received a text.
Oh, the staff. I said Ross, I misspoke.
So I've received a text because we were talking about who hired John Fossil or who was involved and who has final say. I've gotten a text from someone very high up inside the building, I guess you would say. And they said that it was 100% a Brian Callahan hire, which is even more impressive in my mind and says a lot about Brian Callahan's respect around the league to be able to get a guy like John Fossil.
Oh, see, that's not what I thought you were going to say.
What was I going to say?
Actually, because you don't think I do like I do. I thought, man, this is commendable.
Yeah.
He has, demoted or fired his friend.
Yeah.
For the
friend,
team.
By the way, quote unquote. I'm sure they became more closer this season, but
well, there was some relationship. They were there with the Bengals, correct? Okay, I'm just making sure they
were just assistant special teams coordinator and offensive coordinator. I wonder how much overlap they truly have.
Well, I mean, they definitely crossed paths in the no different if you play with a team for 4 years and you say, "Oh, those players know each other." Well, in theory, they know each other, but they don't know each other unless they actually hung together outside of the building. But it does show that he has the cojones to whether fire or demote a coach that he knew of to a certain extent in the building for him, or what was it, 4 years with the Bengals, to make this move and then hire, a highly qualified, very proven special team coordinator. So
that's how I view it.
The cap. Yeah, no, that was also, but I was out there going in the personal side of it.
Right. Yeah. To me, because that's Vrabel's biggest hang up wasn't just doing the buddy hires, quote unquote buddy hires. Right. It's keeping them for way too long and not admitting your mistakes.
And that's okay.
And that's okay to admit your mistakes. And I think that we kind of got a glimpse of that in his final season press conference, Brian Callahan, that you kind of knew the writing was on the wall for certain people, but he also knew, he talks about how admitting your mistakes is very important. He did that in a presser a few weeks before that. He did. And I think there's a difference between saying it and doing it. And doing it is much tougher than saying it. And, Mike Vrabel, because that was the big thing that it was all up in our chat for a long time, was that how can you hold the players accountable if you're not going to hold the staff accountable? And blah, 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 blah. And Vrabel always preached accountability and never held his staff to that same accountability. And now you're seeing
behind the scenes.
Yeah, maybe behind the scenes. But Brian Callahan here is showing in a pretty public way. I mean, this is normally nobody really gets hired over special teams coordinator hiring, but you got one of the best. Now listen, part of that is because Jerry Jones has, jonesed up the whole Cowboys organization and hiring process.
He was available.
But this is a guy that was available. He came to your opportunity that you had open and has a good shot of being able to turn this all around and making special teams matter. And it has not mattered since really the Jeff Fisher era, it feels like, into like Pac-Man Jones. Like you never really had game-changing special teams on a consistent basis since really Jeff Fisher left. I can't, you had, Darius Renaud, stepping, catching a punt in the end or kickoff in the end zone, stepping out, then stepping back in to the end zone I remember where I was.
Why are you torturing me right now?
Sorry. You remember those kinds of plays.
You do.
But we haven't had a real game-changing play. And listen, Dallas Cowboys are one of 3 teams to recover an onside kick that they kicked in the NFL this year. He's all up on it. He's only 51. I thought he was way older than that. Oh. No offense to John, but I thought he was way older than that. But all this to say, this is a massive get and a massive, feather in the cap of Brian Callahan.
Oh, yeah, no question. I mean, he's got a highly qualified. This guy's going to bring energy, too, by the way. He's not your normal 51 dude. This guy is hyper energy, hyper active. here, and he brings that kind of juice because you actually in special teams have to be that way as a player too, and then you feed off of that. And he's really good at what he does in every facet of special teams. So I'm juiced about it. So I feel like that's one check mark that's already done for this off season.
Yeah, not just the hiring,
right,
but the cojones to fire someone or admit your mistakes
or demote. Yeah. We don't know yet. It hasn't been clarified.
He's gotten his special teams play calling duties at least stripped from him. I guess is what you would say.
Yeah, that's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah. I mean, I look at, though, is like, okay, even if Colt Anderson is still demoted, there is still an opportunity for Colt Anderson to learn from one of the best in the game that he himself eventually could get back to a coordinator job opportunity and be more prepared. It's a very weird circumstance if it were to happen that way, by the way.
That didn't happen very often. Usually they move lateral, maybe into another room. It's kind of weird. You the head guy, and then all of a sudden now you're the assistant guy. You know, it can be a little confusing on who players should go to if they have questions, things of that nature, especially early in the season.
Right.
You know, if the guys know one another and have conversation, have a good relationship and dynamics within the room, it wouldn't be an issue. But I would be surprised if that happened. But never seen it, but hey, it happens all the time.
It's just such a good sign for how Brian Callahan conducts his business. He seems to conduct his business objectively as a head coach. And I think that's super important because when he initially went through the hiring process of the special teams coordinator specifically, remember, it took a long time for that staff to be assembled. Yeah. They did their due diligence. They interviewed 7 people, including Colt Anderson, for this job. Now, they landed on Colt Anderson, and that can be that's kind of a black mark, right, on the resume, I guess you would say. That, okay, you interviewed 7 guys and this was the best guy that you got or the guy that you thought it was. But at least they went through 7 people, whereas Mike Vrabel interviewed Jason Hodoling and was like, best interview I've ever had. Got to promote this guy to offensive line coach. And we saw how that all went. But again, being able to admit your mistakes is a big key for a head coach. There's so much more to being a head coach than just coaching.
Yes.
There's messaging you have to worry about throughout the week. There's keeping players motivated. There's being
media
obligations, constantly assessing your staff and all this kind of stuff, self-evaluation, all those things. And to me, I look at it and I go, okay, this is a step in the right direction to show that Brian Callahan is not overly loyal, but also not happy with the status quo. And again, I don't care if even Colt Anderson was good for 10 weeks. If you have a chance to get John Fossil as your special teams coordinator, I'm sorry, I'm firing the special teams coordinator. You got to it's like when you look at your player roster and you say, wow, Nick Westbrook-Akine is a good wide receiver. But I have an opportunity to get a great wide receiver. I need to take that opportunity. So you should always be looking for ways to upgrade not only just your player roster, but your staff roster.
And it was a weak link until maybe, last 3 or 4 games. And they changed rosters, so he could say that it wasn't me to a certain extent. Hey, I was doing the same thing. Now we have better players.
Right.
So there you
go.
Of that.
So that will do it for us on Cover 2. 3HL's up next. This has been Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. And in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.